Welcome to the Double Espresso Show. My name is Rasmus Soymike. I'm the CEO and founder of SBC and your host of the Double Espresso Show. Today we have episode number 4, which is about gaming mechanics with an emphasis on entertainment and innovation. We'll be going over mechanics, how they exist today. We'll go over the variation of the slot mechanics and the constant push for innovation among the game studios. We'll look at the importance of slot mechanics for attracting new players, retaining existing players, and also reactivating customers that are lapsed or been inactive for a while. At the very end, we'll look at regulation, responsible entertainment, and sustainability in regards to how important this is when you're looking at gaming mechanics and games in particular. Now, just to remind all of you, as you know from previous shows, the Double Espresso Show focuses on expert advice and key information from leading experts in the gaming industry in an interview with me. Before we start the interviews or the discussion with our guests, let me explain a little bit about the online casino industry and why we're having this focus on today's episode. So what I can say is the online casino industry has obviously seen an exceptional growth last year in 2020. There was so much innovation, amazing game studios that focused on new creative games, features and jackpots and mechanics that we never seen before, right? And many of the studios had roadmaps where they released more than 50 games. And this year, we're looking at up to 100 games per studio. Well, some studios less, some studios more. And in 2022, talking to Yggdrasil, for instance, we're looking at up to around 150 games. Wow, that's a lot of games. Now, part of the uptake in all this player activity on online slots and in the casino industry has obviously also been fueled by COVID, because we've all been at home, looking for entertainment, ways of engaging and having some fun, and online casino slots has certainly provided that. So that also explains why the industry has had such a boom. But it's continuing in 2021, and it seems to continue into the future as well, with access to new markets like North America and also Latin America. Now, players as well, if we look at the players for a second, we can say that players are now more interested in more engaging slots and gaming experiences, new types of game mechanics. They want to be part of the exploration, the creation of their own experiences, which we see also from the gaming world, like Ubisoft or Blizzard and other game developers creating games like Red Dead Redemption, FIFA, or Diablo coming out, or, you name it. So with that we see that players would expect some sort of way of feeling more part of the game in the online casino industry, which you see by new gaming mechanics seeing the day, which is very interesting. And we'll talk to our guest about this today. I think that's about what I wanted to say about the industry, because I really want to talk to our guest about the industry as a whole and how they see the industry evolving, innovating, and the focus on gaming mechanics. So in the virtual studio today, I would like to say that I have two amazing guests, one being Fredrik Elmqvist, the CEO and founder of Yggdrasil Gaming. And the second guest is David Mann, who is the Chief Commercial Officer from Swin. Now, before I start my interview with Fredrik, he's done amazingly well with Yggdrasil, of course. They built amazing mechanics such as splits, multimax, and gigablocks, and they had, I think, 80 game releases in almost 80 game releases in 2020, and more than 80 coming out in 2021. And Fredrik said that they're looking to release 150 games in 2022. They also work on very innovative elements around the jackpot, and they have the Masters program where they work with new studios. They try and use the mechanics in a way where new studios can access these mechanics and build them into their games. So it's a very interesting conversation I'm having today with Fredrik. Second guest is David, and David is talking about how they're taking inspiration even from the Asian culture into their new mechanics, different ways of playing that is very different from what they had before. And they're also talking about how they're focusing a lot on gamification and other interesting elements to build in to make the mechanics very interesting and very entertaining for the players, and players can feel they're part of the experience. David also emphasized a lot on the fact that they are very focused on the responsible entertainment side. They have built charity into the way the company works, which he thinks is part of why Swin is such a strong company, which I'll absolutely agree with. So, I think we should jump to the interviews now and listen to our guests and just enjoy. Actually, before we go to the interviews, let me remind you that we have the Casino Beat Summit in Malta on the 13th, 14th, 15th of July. And part of the Casino Beat Summit this year, we actually have the Game Developer Awards, which are very interesting and very relevant to mention in this context. Because the Game Developer Awards is the first time any company, in this case SBC and Casino Beats, have created a specific award that is trying to award and recognize game studios and even the developers behind the games to get some recognition for what they've done with this particular game. And in sometimes that's amazing creativity or working with music or whatever it might be within that game. So what we are rewarding here is things like marketing, innovation, license, content, retro style, narrative, design, art direction, music, soundtrack for the game, all these type of areas. There's more information on sbcevents.com about the Game Developer Awards, but I think that's worthwhile checking out as well. Okay, let's go to the interviews. Fredrik Elmquist, great to see you again, my friend, and welcome to the Double Espresso Show.
Thanks for having me, Ras. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. And before we start, a quick cheer in Double Espresso.
Oh, nice. You got the cups too.
I need my caffeine, my friend. I need my caffeine.
Send me a cup.
Will do. Listen, Fredrik, just before we start, just quickly, how are you doing today? All good? Happy?
All good. Weather is amazing here in Barcelona. Spring is definitely here. We have a sneak peek of the summer. So it's all good.
Excellent.
And yourself? All good?
Yeah, very good, Fredrik. Very excited to have you on the show. This is episode number 4, and we're talking about gaming mechanics with an emphasis on, entertainment and innovation, as you know. And we have 4 questions to discuss around how you and Yggdrasil work around gaming mechanics, and I think we should just get started. So let's jump to...
cracking.
There you go. So let's go to question number 1. Fredrik, can you describe gaming mechanics and the role and importance different mechanics sort of play for the online casino and slots industry?
Well, I can give you a bit of how I've seen this industry has developed. So when I mean now the industry, I'm thinking about the online slots development.
Sure.
And I gotta say that initially, everyone that was out there developing games were very, very, very inspired by land-based. Inspired in sometimes 100% inspired in we're talking about copying land-based games because they were working in land-based, and we got to be honest with ourselves here. There's a lot of copying. And a lot of inspiration going from land-based. I gotta say that now for the past years, I see a lot of innovation coming from the online side. I think everyone has realized how important the mechanics are, both from a user experience point of view, from a marketing point of view, which means then also from the profitability point of view. I can just go back and look at how YGG Yggdrasil then has looked upon mechanics over the years. Yeah. I mean, we have had a pretty anarchistic view of mechanics. We were very mechanical driven, actually more mechanically than mathematically driven. We were very anarchistic in that way. We were early out with something called Fusion Realms, which was more of an experiment. We introduced that in a game called Jungle Books years ago, I think 18 or something. Which years ago, it's just 3 years ago, but it feels like forever in this industry, right? It does. But we kept on that anarchistic approach, and which means that we we are indeed got the new mechanics out, already new mechanics out two way. We were actually kind of pushing too much mechanics out and not being true to the user experience of one or two or three of them. But that we changed. I would say we've changed that a lot. The strategy changed for the past 18 months.
Okay.
We now have 28% of our volumes over proper mechanics, like we have the giga blocks, the splits, the multi-max, and also we look at the called Jackpot 5, which is the one we use for the very successful Holmes games. And they, as I said, they are now 28% of our total volumes, and it's more than 100% growth year on year. So they become more and more important.
Sorry, more than 100% growth year on year?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
And we've actually as well, we know we have a YG Master program, which means we allow third-party studios to develop games on our platform, right? Mm-hmm. And we have opened up for them to use our mechanics. So we license that IP separately to them, and we already have 7 studios signed up for, we call them GEMs, game engagement mechanics. So we have 7 studios signed up on GEMs already. And I think by the end of this year, you're going to start seeing Giga Blocks and these and Multimax games going to come up from third-party studios. So we're growing in that as well. I mean, this year we're launching 82 games.
82 games this year.
It's coming out from us. We did 14 or 15 games last year, 82 games coming out.
And that's with your studio partners as well, right? With
all in all. And 7 of these are 7 of these are gems, so we call them the gems. And that's just growing. Next year, 2022, is going to be even more. I think we might be looking at 140, 150 games next year based on third-party studios and using our intellectual properties. And of course, our own game studio is ramping up. So it looks very, very exciting. And I think this whole thing with gems, or the mechanics, is actually, it's good for production, because the user experience, which means a lot of the game flow and a lot of that has already been kind of developed.
Yeah.
So it looks really, really good. It looks really, really good. It's good for the bottom line. It's good for top line.
I mean, you say 150 games, and I think that sounds like a lot, and it sounds very interesting with the mix of your own development and the studio development.
Yeah.
And the studio, the program with the studios you're working with, and also how they use your very strongly built and tested and on the user experience and everything else on the mechanic side. But let's actually jump to the next question then, because I think you just led into that, because the next question is about me asking you to tell me more about Yggdrasil's gaming mechanics and how you develop and innovate in this space. And you mentioned Giga Block, splits, Multimax. So maybe you can explain a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I mean, we want to have a portfolio of mechanics that is a bit wide. It's not exactly the same. So the Giga Blocks, of course, works with bigger blocks, and it has a special experience on how it's implemented. So it's not only the mechanics; there's an experience that goes along with it, and the anyone who's building a Giga Blocks game needs to follow those guidelines that we attach to it. And for splits, it's the same thing. It's splits. It adds volatility to special spins, which is very important. And the Multimax was actually a completely unique mechanics that was launched firstly in this game that I forgot the name of it, but it's called, because I hate the name of the game. The name of the game is Multifly, and I hate it. But it's a beautiful looking game, and it's performing.
So obviously you came up with that name, and then you realized it's bad.
I wanted to change the name of the game, but it's doing really well, and it's called Multimax, and it's a beautiful looking game. And you will see more of that coming up from our own studios later this year. I mean, I will just tell you this. Our entire portfolio for the second half of this year is going to be much more targeting frequent players, higher variance. I think that's what you see in all of these games that we come out with now, that they have much higher variance. You increase the unpredictability of the games as well, which is the players are looking for. We spend a lot more time on R&D new mechanics. So
Okay.
I hope that for the 2022 roadmap, I would hope that 75-80% of the games coming out are coming out on our own gems, our own mechanics.
Okay.
That is what
Excellent.
we're steering for.
And you know what? I know that you guys are working on a series of amazing podcasts to go more into detail about all the mechanics. So I would say, as an extension to the conversation and talk you and I have today, I would encourage everyone to reach out to Yggdrasil or follow Yggdrasil on social media and the website and find out about the releases of the podcast. I know you've been working with Karen, the CMO. Great person to organize all of this, and you guys together, I'm sure, will create some amazing, insight into Yggdrasil and the online slot development industry as a whole. So very excited about that. And you can tell me a little bit more about that in the end, because I would like to ask you before we go to question number 3, which is a little bit more about the players and the reaction to all the mechanics and how you think that into the whole mix. You also work quite a lot with jackpots and other features as part of your mechanics. And I was just thinking just a little bit about the jackpots and also maybe about the future of mechanics, even though you already addressed it. Just a few more words if you can share on that.
Yeah, of course. No, but we have had the progressive jackpots. They're pooled, they're local, which means there can be commingled between operators in certain jurisdictions that allow for it. So they've been very, very successful. We have, the Joker Millions and Empire Fortunes, and then we have the series that are based on the host mechanics, which is going to be labeled as Jackpot 5.
Yeah.
And be launched. More games going to be launched on Jackpot 5s, and we're going to license that to studios. And that, of course, is going to improve liquidity even further because we can pool them. So I think that's just, studios, smaller independent studios, going to have a very, it's going to be very hard for them to build liquidity. We're going to add them into our liquidity on the Jackpot 5. So it's going to be very, very interesting going forward to see how games on the Jackpot 5 will actually have more rapid payouts and can also handle a bit bigger jackpots. So keep an eye out for Jackpot 5 games. I think that's going to be the name it's going to be released. It's still in final works with marketing, basically, on how to label it. But the function is there, and the game mechanic is there, but we haven't labeled it yet. As we know, progressive jackpots is very important, and if we can help bring in liquidity to some external studios, and that is going to make it much more rapid turnover.
Absolutely. Yeah, just on the Jackpot 5, it all sounds very interesting. Recently I think there was a 19 million euro win at Napoleon Games, based on microgaming. I think it was. I mean, how important is the size of the jackpots?
Yeah.
Is that it? Does it need to be in that range, or does this have to be a jackpot on millions, or what we looking at here?
Well, you know what? If you ask the operators, they think that there's enough jackpots out there because
Sure.
they tend to think that if a player wins 1.9 million or 2 million or even 1 million, he's not going to turn that over into the casino. So they see it kind of like the money's being stolen, money that would otherwise be turned over and kind of grinded over time and lost to the casino. And so they rather not have those big jackpots. On the other hand, the one that has a winning player, that operator can, of course, use that as a promotion in its jurisdictions.
Absolutely.
If it's allowed to marketing nowadays, you need to think very, very long and hard for how to market your offers to players, as you can get fined and so forth. But of course, it's a valuable tool in terms of marketing. We have big jackpots already, so I don't think we were going to target these super big. But I think the good thing here as well, we can actually elaborate over time. The jackpot products is actually an organic, it's an organic product. It's an organic jackpot. So you could actually say we recertify it, and you change the expected fallout values and the contributions, how you see fit. Depending on when you see a lot of liquidity coming through there, you might actually change that. And that is one of the good things, at least in our platform, what we can do.
Okay. Let me jump to question number three. Really appreciate all the great insight you're giving us here today. So, but if we can move a bit over towards the players here, and if you can tell me a bit more about gaming mechanics and let's say their importance for attracting new players, retaining players, and also the third one would be how you reactivate players that have been inactive or lapsed for a certain amount of time. How do you see game mechanics here?
Well, I see that the strength with gaming mechanics is actually the recognition of players, that the players recognize, they know that a game has a certain behavior. They know how the game works, basically. They know how to play, they know how to win, they know what to expect from a multi-max game, they know what to expect from a Gigabox game, and so forth, which I think is good for that's why the numbers are up. I mean, we see between 100 and 300% better performance on these mechanics than regular games.
Wow.
And we also have studios that only run, the famous, now famous Avatar UX studios who's running their very popular Popwin. They are only going with that. They're sticking to one formula, and it seems to be very, very successful.
Yeah.
So it's because player recognition, player do know what to expect, and they know how the games behave. And I think that's why you also get the retention rate, and you get that's why you get these several 100% better performance on those games. And I also think that you'd spend a lot more time in R&Ding the mechanics instead of just trying. And I would actually say that when we created let's say the first Multimax game, we didn't think about it as a game. But then we realized this is so unique and it's so good. Why don't we package it as that? And because player automatically recognized it, and they wanted a sequel.
Yeah.
So instead of doing thematical sequel like Vikings 25, you rather do a sequel, so to say, on the mechanics, repeating the mechanics, but always with some twist. Otherwise, it's just going to be skin. And players today, they don't like skins. So today you have the rating company. I thought you have a company as well, right? There's rating slots, and there's
Yeah.
others rating slots. And the last thing any studio wants to come up, hey, this is just a copy of something. Don't even promote it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you don't get the distribution with the operators, if people are talking it down before it's even launched, it's going to have zero chance to succeed. So skins, I don't believe in skins, but mechanical sequels, that of course has a value, but it needs to have some innovation also if it's using the same mechanics.
Absolutely makes sense. We already spoken for 15 plus minutes now. There you go. Time
Wow.
flies by. So I'll jump to the last question, and at the end you have a chance to say a few follow ups as well. But if I ask you sort of, which I think is a very important question for the industry and the industry as a whole. Now, if I say regulation, responsible entertainment, sustainability, right? What does this mean for slot developers, game studios, and actually the online casino industry as a whole?
Yeah. I think you see continuous more of those. Player restrictions actually has an impact on us. Changing the RTP because of a legislation has an impact on us, and it has an impact on the players and the experience of the game. Taking down from 96.2 to 92.5. We actually giving back less money to the players, which of course we don't like. We believe that there's a good balance in higher, 96 something, which gives player a chance to win money.
Yeah,
That's good. It's good for the players. It's good for the industry. So I actually don't think that the regulators should get involved in even in stuff like how the design works and when you could show a coin splash and so forth. I just think that it's completely over-regulating things. But we haven't seen the rest of it yet. It seems that politicians driving this, and we see that the public space is pushing for sometimes for further regulations. So let's hope that they will. Let's hope that this is not going to go completely bonkers going forward.
true. And when you say politicians, do you think that maybe there could be more education on the side of the ones regulating the space and trying to understand how it all works to make sure there's a mutual interest and benefit here in making the industry responsible and sustainable?
Well, there's a lot of these lobby organizations that everyone chip into, and they seem to be doing what they can in what they want. But I don't think that there's a huge interest for the regulators, especially the politicians who's controlling the regulators, to actually be more informed. I think the day we will see more of a worse channelization, and you see maybe start seeing some other type of development around counterfeit products and so forth. When that start hitting the news, and you realize, hey, we're opening up for a complete counterfeit business here. Money that being channeled, instead of being kept in the regulated space, is being channeled to complete dark sites that might be involved in other criminal activities. And then, told you so, but it might be a bit too late.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is actually that for the industry, that it's going to be so overregulated that the players are willing to take those extra steps and go in a much darker path, which might have no withdrawals succeeded, and complete counterfeit experience. That's my biggest worry for the industry, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think as well, looking at a lot of slots development and planning going into North America and also Latin America, like we need to be early in dealing with this as a more responsible approach, so we don't have to go back to the I hate to say I told you so scenario that we might be looking at in Europe. Absolutely agree. Listen, we're running on 20 minutes now. Great chat. Appreciate you coming on the show. So before we round this off, is there a few things you might want to share with the listeners and the viewers?
Well, no, you see, keep your eyes open. A lot of games going to come out from us. I think we ramped up, so we are 6, 7, soon 8, 9 games a month, all high quality. I think if you're a frequent player, you like higher variance, and you kind of think that we haven't had that kind of a taste on our games for the past, let's say, previous 18 months, you're going to be in it for a treat for the next, starting with Gator Gold actually this month, coming out end of this month, and then just rocking and rolling on that note towards the end of the year. That I can tell you.
And Frederick, I'm really impressed by what you guys are doing. You're a great company. You got some great colleagues. You've been managing this really well. Yggdrasil has done well over the years. And it's not stopping here, right? I mean, you're saying up to 150 games next year. You're working on Jackpot 5. You got all the great mechanics, giga blocks and splits and program you're working with multiple studios. It all sounds very exciting and
super exciting.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good spot to be in today.
No, I mean, amazing spot. And also, you guys have the podcast series coming out. So, as I said, I would recommend all our listeners and viewers and the industry to pick up on this to learn more about Yggdrasil and the industry as a whole. So, Frederick, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Raz.
I'll talk to you
soon,
soon,
man.
Friend.
Anytime. Adios, amigo.
Go one out.
Ciao.
David Mann, welcome to the Double Espresso Show. How are we feeling today?
Yeah, great. Nice to be here, Raz. Thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a really nice sunny day here in Malta, so obviously I'm glad that the summer's finally here. It's taken a while to come in, but yeah, good. Let the good times roll.
Excellent. Well, today, David, we are going to talk about gaming mechanics with an emphasis on entertainment and innovation, and we have 4 questions. We only have about 15 minutes, so I think I'll jump right into it, and we'll have an amazing discussion, I'm sure. So if you don't mind, I'll ask you question number 1, which is, David, can you describe gaming mechanics and the role and importance they sort of play with the different types of mechanics for the online casino industry?
Yeah, sure. I mean, gaming mechanics, they're differentiators across this vast conveyor belt of content that's available to players. So it allows us to, focus on creating unique and fun and engaging mechanics and it's really crucial for suppliers like us to be able to get visibility in the lobby, to make sure that players are interested in our games, to get operators on board with the content. There's a lot of different classic features out there that have been worked on over the years, and a lot of really new, exciting ones. I've seen a bit of a resurgence recently on these kind of hold and win respin features. There's a lot of games out there. We have a couple in our portfolio as well, such as our game Spin City, where a certain number of cash symbols appear in the reels and it respins 3 times to keep filling up the screen. There seems that a lot of players recently are really buying into this feature. It's a tried and tested. It's nice to kind of port across the wider portfolio as well. So I think it's good to see these classic features still being picked up by players, and allows us to really start playing with how we can make it more interesting and engaging for players. That gives us that differentiating factor within the market.
Absolutely. I mean, we'll return to also a discussion around gaming mechanics, how they work for acquisition and retention, and all that. So we'll dig more into that later on in this talk here. But if I can ask you the second question then, and we can go a little bit more into detail about Swin. Can you tell me about Swin's gaming mechanics and how you develop and innovate in this particular space?
Yeah, as I mentioned, the hold and respin type feature, we have this across some of our games as well. And we're trying to, come up with some new mechanics. For example, taking this respin feature of certain symbols within the board and aligning it with a jackpot function. But without giving too much away, but there would be a kind of dual set of reels. So like a dual set of reels where the prizes correlating on one set of reels are actually on the prize reel as such. So we're going to be releasing this with an upcoming title, Blocks Zeus, and this is the blocks feature that we're going to be releasing into the market. So it's really exciting. I think it's something that as a function that we can start rolling across even some of the older titles. We've seen certain mechanics within the industry. It's popular to revitalize older games. So we have older content. Master Books is a really popular game of ours that, if we implement a new feature within a tried and tested game, you can get a whole new fan base of players who like the feature. They might not be aware of the game, and the original players can still play the game that they enjoy at the same time. We've seen that it doesn't seem taking this approach doesn't really seem to cannibalize players. Quite often, you're actually just adding more into your player base. We also want to work into this trend of ways types features. There's obviously a lot of different ways mechanics. There's one that's more famous than the rest in the market, but it's a really interesting way to play. I think it helps that it's really driving innovation within the industry and really trying to get us to come up with really new, exciting ways to engage the players through the ways mechanic. So we've always taken a regional approach with our games. We have certain content that we know works in certain markets. We're trying to really offer the best content for the best market to the operators to engage with players more. So we're looking at how we can maybe take a regional twist with these ways mechanics, with different mechanics that we're producing to allow us to take something players maybe know from a different sector of the industry, or even from video games or culture, something that appeals to them, that we can then twist into our own way into the content. So for example, at the moment we're working on a specific mechanic that takes elements of Asian culture, and we're implementing this to have these kind of exciting random prizes within games. So this is one we're really looking forward to. We can't really I can't reveal too much, but over the next few months it's a little teaser there for you to try and grab onto.
Sounds good. I mean, very interesting with the regional approach. I mean, in question number 4, we're going to address responsible entertainment, regulation, and all that. But does that sort of regional approach, does that have anything to do with regulation, the different requirements around mechanics that is you have to adhere to in different countries? Or can you elaborate a bit on that?
I mean, if there is certain limitations that we should be aware of from a certain region, and what the players, what we can offer. I mean, we can see obviously we're shifting rules within, in Germany, you're not allowed to offer jackpot type games, and there's certain even game variants you're not allowed to offer, you know, so we always have to be aware of this. But yeah, it's just about trying to make sure we can deliver the best experience with the games in as safe and compliant way as possible. Yeah.
But it seems to make sense, right? I mean, looking regional always helps to optimize games for players based in that particular country. So very interesting. We can come back to that as well and discuss that in greater detail. You did mention jackpot, for instance, not being allowed in Germany. So how does it work with Swin and jackpots as a part of feature and mechanic? How does that sit with you guys using jackpots?
We haven't really touched on the progressive jackpot network yet. It's obviously something we're looking at. There's a lot of exciting stuff going on within that sector we've seen in the last few years. But
well, you just had microgaming. What was it, like 90 million? The player won in the Belgium, like Napoleon Games.
The world record.
Of course. Wow.
Yeah. Fantastic. You know. Yeah, I mean, completely life-changing amounts. So I think that you're always going to have that amazing reception of these jackpot games, and you know, that's why you play the slots, right? You always want to get that big prize, and there's nothing better than this serious life-changing amount jackpot. But what Red Tiger done, you know, with their daily and hourly time jackpots was, you know, a real twist on a tried and tested jackpot method, and you know, it makes it as a smaller pot. It's, you know, it's statistically it's more attainable and much more exciting if you feel that it's much more within your reach as a player. It's very exciting. Looking at, you know, other markets, the likes of Germany and so on, you know, you just have to try and look at what you can do within regulations and see what you can do to give the players the best experience there, you know. But this will happen. This is jurisdictions, you know, different regulators will come up with different rules, and we just hope over time everybody starts, you know, aligning a bit more, and it becomes a bit more easier to manage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, very interesting. And you know, let me go to the next question. We have some more time to go into detail with everything we're talking about in the end. But very interesting. And if I can ask you question number 3, that would be around sort of game mechanics and the importance for gaming mechanics to attract new players, retaining existing players, and how they work as a way of reactivating, you know, lapsed or inactive customers. How important is different types of gaming mechanics for the players here? It's a broad question, but yeah.
I mean, players are spoiled for choice right now, right? I mean, there's so much variation in the market. It's so ultra competitive that everyone's trying to, you know, develop these new mechanics and give something really exciting that offers so much more to players. I mean, the advancements in technology, the mobile, you know, everybody's trying to perfect the mobile product, especially within portrait mode. So it's a nice platform for suppliers to try and see how you can maximize the usage of the screen or the orientation, figure out new ways that you can really make it work. We've seen as well, like, you know, cluster games that are in the market. They're extremely popular, especially within certain markets. And they're so nice to play and engaging within mobile. Of course, we're looking into some games here as well. But you know, it's just, again, it's making use of this modern technology and offering just more variation to players. I mean, you can see in the market, Megaways is not showing any signs of slowing down, but it's really forcing other suppliers like us to look into other mechanics. And trying to see what
you're saying. Megaways have been kind of also driving innovation, I guess, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable assumption. I mean, you can see the impact that it's made.
Absolutely,
you know, it's really made such a huge impact, and you know, while other providers have still been trying mechanics at the same time, you know, the engagement and excitement of this product it's been tremendous. So, you know, everyone else is now thinking, they've reinvented that a bit. How can we look into something else? What is the next Megaways? What's the next mechanic that someone really wants to develop from there? So, you know, sometimes these innovations can really, you know, they augur a bit of extra, I don't know, focus on different mechanics that they can deliver. And like I said, even with like the jackpots, you know, we see what Red Tiger had done. That was really impressive. With the unique take on the jackpot system, and you know, I guess, you know, that's another element that suppliers are going to look, what can we do with jackpots? In fact, what else can we do with different features within games, different mechanics? What could be changed to really try and bring the next best thing and engage new players? I mean, you're going to have consistent segments of players that are new to online casino. You're going to have younger players who've grew up with high quality video games, mobile gaming. You know, they expect
Absolutely.
something much more engaging and exciting than they would ever have played over the past 5 to 10 years. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, the boundaries can keep being pushed, and I'm sure they will be. There's always going to be room for the classics, and tried and tested formulas. A classic fruits game, a pub fruits game. These games are always going to be around. But as a player myself, I think it's great that you can go into a casino lobby and there's so much variation to go from, and there's something out there for everyone.
So, I mean, you mentioned about all these games and everything sort of coming forward these days. So much innovation happening. I spoke to Frederick Elmquist, from Yggdrasil on this show as well, and he was mentioning about 80 plus games this year, and had a roadmap almost about 150 games for 2022. So, how does your roadmap look like this year and for 2022?
Yes, I mean, we're averaging at the moment around 4 games per month. So we're really pushing them out. I mean, we have our selection of land-based games that have been popular within land-based markets across Europe, especially Germany, and they form a crucial part of our portfolio. And then we have our own studio as well that's developing, again, 2 games per month. That's forming all part of the same roadmap. And maybe we even have the live games. We have Swin Live that we're bringing out as well. So that's another vertical, but still more games that we can release throughout the year. So, okay. I mean, there is a lot of quality against quantity going on, but we're pretty sure that, you just have to keep pushing forward, keep producing great content, and, the stronger that your position is in the market, the more you can even engage players from there.
Absolutely. And I also know Swin is quite forward thinking around the gamification. So how do you see your work on gamification tying in with the gaming mechanics? How does it all work together? If you can elaborate a bit on this part.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to make the gamification experience for the players as easy as possible, as well as for the operator, of course. But players, everything's contained within the game. It's all from a widget. Players can access the tournaments, the leaderboards. Okay. So we can run tournaments with dynamic scoring criteria. So we can tie in specific game events that can relate to our mechanics. And then put it into scoreboard, so you can create a much more volatile experience. So if you have a mechanic that shoots out random prizes within the game, those prizes could be tied directly into the leaderboard or directly into achievements to give this added value to the player. And that's what it's about. It's giving extra value to the player, increasing their engagement, giving them more, and rewarding them from that experience as well. Further down the line, we have some other nice developments to come with the gamification. It's no secret that we're quite a green and charitable minded company. We like to, ultimately we want to do good. That's kind of where the angle we're going for. So we're going to expand our gamification across a more philanthropic approach. And it'll be interesting to tie that also into our new mechanics to come up as well.
Okay. I mean, David, we've already been talking now for 15 minutes. There you go. So I'll jump to the last question, which is quite an interesting one. I think most people would love to hear your view on regulation, responsible entertainment, and sustainability. Those 3 areas here combined. How do you see this? What does it mean for slot developers, game studios, and maybe the online casino industry as a whole? We talked a little bit about Germany and all this, but what will you say when I ask you about these 3 specific areas?
I mean, we all want to see players enjoying their games in a responsible way. I think, understandably, most of the onus falls on the operators for monitoring player behaviour, their activity, making sure they're not spending way above their means, of course, all the KYC and due diligence, of course. But we can always look at what we can do from our side and the supplier side. We're seeing like regulatory changes in Germany, the proposed turnover tax. It's looking like the main discussion that's going to have a negative impact in RTP in games, which just I mean, It's just going to turn players towards unregulated sites, where there's always going to be these risks.
Frederick from Yggdrasil said the same thing. Very interesting.
Yeah, and it's adding risk into the players. I mean, there's probably always going to be a couple of brands that are, more high regarded and well considered within the more grey operations. But you want players to have a trustworthy experience. You want them to really connect with the casino. So these kind of upcoming regulations are going to impact the mechanics and then impact the player experience and then ultimately the safety. So I guess from our side, we should always be trying to look at how can we engage more to make with the operators, with the players, and even with regulators to try and make it a bit more safer for players. And even from a sustainability point, I mean, it ties into what I was saying with our Swin play it back, our charitable focus to try and give back to good causes from player gameplay. We're trying to make the world a better place at the same time as often a safe, enjoyable experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's also a tricky one, right? Because what you're saying is about looking at the gaming industry and saying gaming industry is outside the gambling, right? It's like Blizzard, Ubisoft, and all developers of console gaming and mobile gaming and whatever else. And it's about engaging players, keeping them playing as long as you can. And I guess one of the issues we have is obviously you have to pay to play, right? So there's a balance there between the two. And I guess what you're saying with looking at all these opportunities of working with the games, can we make these games engaging, interesting for the players, but also let them play longer, enjoy it more without spending more than they can afford, right? So finding that balance is very tricky, but I think a lot of it is certainly something that we need to work with and need to keep understanding and improving on, and just make sure that the whole industry is continuing to be a good responsible entertainment industry, right? So
no, absolutely,
definitely.
Of course, yeah. I mean, if you're lowering the RTP, you're reducing that session length because the player's balance is going to be drained much faster. So you want to give them as much enjoyment as they can.
Absolutely.
I mean, the industry it's an easy target for politicians to appease the baying masses. It's a quick one to get to, but you can see in the video game industry, I mean, loot boxes and, there's reports of kids playing these games for, hundreds of hours at once, and
Absolutely.
It can cause real issues. So, I understand that the gaming industry is regulated and quite rightly so, but it can be a bit too easy a target sometimes. And, it's a shame to see regulators just coming with regulations and not really considering, of course it's our industry, but, we understand player behavior
100%.
better than anyone.
100%. And, it's a tricky one because you pointed it out. The thing is, if you try and shove it under the carpet instead of understanding it and talking to you as a supplier, the operators, and sit at the same table, you're just going to give these players back to the more gray-black market, which is what you kind of wanted to avoid in the first place by regulating the market. So
Precisely.
you can't just get rid of gambling for that matter, and we don't want to because a lot of people enjoy it, like myself. I mean, when I was 16 years old, man, I used to play the slot machines in cafes and stuff like that. I got into it because I had an early win and it was like ringing and it was fun, and maybe I was like 60, 70 quid, but a lot of money back then. And I ended up sort of looking around and trying to understand machines because they had this combination of mechanics when they were going to kind of like ring, you call it. And when they were ringing, they were spitting out the jackpot, right? It's good fun. You enjoyed it. It became kind of like a good, interesting form of entertainment, right? So, but there's always balances between, and you mentioned, you addressed it today. I think you're absolutely right. But we certainly need to be at the forefront of the right type of entertainment we're creating to make sure it's responsible the way we're presenting this to the players. But you seem to be very much on the right track on this with Swin, which is good to hear. David, we talked for more than 20 minutes now, so we have to cut it off. But before I cut it off, I want to ask you if you have a couple of closing remarks or something. By all means, do share with our listeners and our viewers.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate being here to get to talk more about Swin. In the coming months, like I've said, we're really starting to make some new ground with the mechanics and the focus that we're taking. I really think that this charitable angle that we're taking for Swin Play It Back, it's really going to be something that's going to shake up the industry.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we're looking forward to actually getting this thing off the ground. I think it's about time that someone came up with something that we're providing.
Okay. Just, you don't have to tell me, but we're looking at interesting markets like LATAM, North America as well. So Swin, have any plans to look at those markets, or is that still something on the table of discussion?
Absolutely. We
Okay.
want to move into as many regulated markets as we can.
Very
We take a
interesting.
global approach as it is, and especially with our focus on localized and specialist content that appeals to certain markets. That's we want to make sure if we enter a market, then we can offer the right games for that market as well. So
Okay.
it takes a bit of research, takes a bit of time, but yeah, we definitely want to start setting our eyes further afield.
Very interesting, and I know you guys well. Why I wanted you on the show, David. I think you got some great colleagues. It's a great company, very ambitious, been very quick in getting an amazing company up. I mean, very impressed, and I think the responsible entertainment side, the view on regulations and all this, and the way you work with charity elements as well is all very good stuff. So I just want to say a big thank you for joining the Double Espresso show today, and I'm looking forward to getting you maybe on a joint panel with some of the other slot developers to discuss sort of more jointly, whereas this here was more like a single you and me conversation. So thanks again,
Yeah,
David.
yeah. Thanks. Really enjoyed it, mate. Thank you very much for having me. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Bye bye.
A big thank you to Frederick and David for joining my virtual studio today and sharing a few double espressos with me. Frederick from Yggdrasil had some amazing views on gaming mechanics. Yggdrasil certainly is on the forefront of innovation, and they're looking to release no less or no fewer than 150 games in 2022. So big ambitious plans. Very exciting stuff, and I think David Mann, as he mentioned, they're very strong in terms of how they plan, look at different markets, even into the gaming industry, to get experience and input and ideas into how they can also work with their games within the casino or the online casino industry. So both of them really had some great points to share about how we view gaming mechanics, how gaming mechanics are important to keep the players engaged, have fun, entertain themselves, right? Be part of the experience, as we talked about. So I think today has been very interesting, and I certainly think that we are seeing a huge boom now in the online casino industry, and that will continue as we're looking at markets like North America, where the online casino industry, iGaming, plays a big part, a growing part of a market that is said to be worth more than 20 billion in 2025, and also Latin America, which is a huge growth opportunity as well. So iGaming will continue to grow. There'll be a continued demand for amazing games, but obviously, as you compete for the attention of players within the operators and the operator casino lobbies, you need to be innovative. You need to come up with strong game mechanics to be on the forefront of what the players expect from you as a game studio. So I like to say again a big thank you to David and Frederick, and thanks for viewing or listening to the Double Espresso Show episode 4 about gaming mechanics. Thank you.